Welcome, everyone. I'm actually not your host today. I am your guest. Our host is Todd Davis, who is the Chief People Officer of FranklinCovey, and we have switched chairs today. I'm in the guest chair, and Todd is in the host chair, so I'm going to assume the guest role. And Todd, you're up.
Thanks, Scott. Scott wanted to host himself, but I said maybe it's a better idea to have a host and a guest. So I will be your host today, Todd Davis. Pleased to have Scott Miller, Executive Vice President of Thought Leadership with FranklinCovey, as our guest. Soon to be a best-selling author, I suspect, based on all the buzz that has been created by his book, Management Mess to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to Become the Leader You Would Follow. So that's what we're here to talk about. Scott, let's talk about your own leadership journey. Are you telling us that that you weren't born a great leader, that your first leadership role, you didn't hit it out of the park?
Well, that's a question I'm asked a lot on other podcasts. I'm not sure anybody was born a great leader. I think leadership is a skill that you grow and learn into. And I always kind of thought I would be a great leader. You know, in high school, I was on the student council and such, and I kind of equated leadership with personality and charisma and energy. And those can be assets in a leadership role. But as I learned really in my first formal corporate job at Disney, where I wasn't a leader, but I became a leader here at the FranklinCovey Company, that those aren't leadership talents. Those are personality traits that can work for you or against you. Mm-hmm. But really becoming a leader requires a whole different level of discipline and skill and focus and mindset. And so I was not born a good leader and probably wasn't a great leader early on. And some still might debate it, including me.
We'll take a vote. So what was the motivation behind writing this book?
Well, you know, I've been in the firm almost as long as you have, right? Yeah. Just about 23 years, had lots of ups and downs, more ups and downs. I've had a lot of people be my champion, forgive me, pre-forgive me. And I kind of, as I turned 50 a year ago, I really became aware that sometimes I'm a bit of a square peg in a round hole, right? FranklinCovey is a great organization. I am a huge champion and evangelist, and I'm not like everyone there. I'm from the East Coast, and I had to learn the Utah nice culture and had to figure out how to make my personality assets work in this culture. And so I realized that there's a lot of people out there like me that are sort of unfiltered leaders, that leadership doesn't come naturally. We tend to say the wrong thing. We tend to do the wrong thing, not ethically or morally, just it doesn't come as natural. I'm a fairly impulsive person. I sometimes say what's on my mind, and I shouldn't always do that. And so for me, I wanted to give voice to the probably millions of people in the world that were like me, that find leadership rewarding but really challenging. And if I could share really openly a lot of my mistakes and my challenges, that it might make it easier for other people who find leadership, like I said, kind of an ongoing challenge, debilitating sometimes.
So when did you first start to realize, when you say, you know, you tend to speak your mind and say the right things, say what is on your mind, when did you start to realize that wasn't going to work for you?
This morning.
You know, no, I mean, was it in your first leadership role? Was it back when you were in student government? When did you start to realize that maybe you needed to give a little more thought to that?
I think when I joined a corporate culture, like everybody, I had jobs in high school. I was a realtor, quite successful early in life, and I worked in bakeries and restaurants, and you could kind of say what you wanted, you know, in that more casual culture. And then I joined the Disney company, who was a very legitimate Fortune 50 company, very conservative, very buttoned down. And I kind of played the part on the outside, but on the inside, it wasn't working for me, right? Just my style was a little more cavalier and a little less responsible. And so I had a fairly rocky road at Disney. In fact, Disney invited me to leave. And I had no choice but to take that invitation. And it was a boot, in the ass. But I left, and I started to realize that's not working. And then I was recruited by the Covey Leadership Center. And I had a rocky road there. And so I think it was probably years into my role here that I started to realize my strengths can become my weaknesses if taken too far. It's something you teach and you've taught me. And I had to really realize what's working for me can also work against me. So, and I've had to be reminded of it a lot. It wasn't like I learned it when I was 28 or 32 or 45 or 50, right? I mean, I'm almost 51 and I'm still finding myself occasionally remembering that wasn't wise, that wasn't well thought through, that was insensitive. So I'm learning it. I'm not sure it was, a pivot point.
Okay. Well, of the 30 challenges that you write about in your book, I'm suspecting that what you just shared has something to do with why you chose demonstrate humility as the number one. Is that
Well, I think
correct?
it's because it's one of the ones that I struggle with. I think it's something that I wasn't all too familiar with. When I heard the word humility, when I joined FranklinCovey,
You had to look it up in the dictionary.
well, I think I saw it as quiet.
Yeah.
I saw it as shy.
Submissive.
Right, submissive and reserved. Something your great-grandfather does, not something that a charismatic, bold, take-charge leader does. And I don't think I've shown a tremendous amount of humility in my career. I think I have humble tendencies, but I also think it's something I fight against. So I might have written it for myself as number one, is that above all, if you want to be an impactful, generous, influential leader, a success is humility. And a mess is perhaps its opposite, arrogance. I learned from an interview that I conducted with Karen Dillon, who is the co-author of a variety of books, including How Will You Measure Your Life? And she talked about how confidence is actually born out of humility. It's humble leaders who are confident. It's arrogant leaders who are not confident. And that really kind of rocked my world, that I've had a little bit of a swagger and some arrogance. And I started to think, my confidence, which I'm proud of and is, I think, well-earned, needs to flow more from my humility and less from my arrogance.
Okay, well said. So maybe this is obvious, but then who is the book written for? How do they go about using it?
Your publisher wants you to really narrowly define your target market, right? Their age, their race, their gender. Mm-hmm. I think it's for everyone. That sounds arrogant, but I mean it to be humble. It's for everyone who's in a leadership role, formal or informal. I think in the book, like I said, I've curated with a team of people these 30 challenges. There's more than 30 challenges you'll face as a leader. But these 30 can work if you're a spouse, a mother, you're the head of a committee at your church, you're organizing the Boy Scouts, or you're leading a team in an organization. If I had to narrow it, I'd say it's for people like me, people that are thrust into a leadership role that they wanted and now regret, or that they've earned and now are like, oh crap, what do I do? And I think through my stories in the book, it can help anybody pretty instantly rethink some of the pitfalls and potholes that we face as leaders. So I would say whether you are a CEO and you're really seasoned or you're just starting out of college as a leader, I think you'll enjoy the book. And I tell you, if nothing less, you'll find it to be blush-worthy and uproariously funny because I let it out there. I was very comfortable saying, I've done a lot of things that I'm not proud of, nothing unethical or immoral, but things that I don't regret. I just am introspective on. I think a lot of people can relate to this. I just wrote it in a book.
Okay. And if I'm in a leadership role or I'm anticipating going into some kind of a leadership role, would I just read the book from chapter 1 through the finish, or is there a specific process you would have me follow?
Well, I think it's a wise question because I'll answer it in two parts. I would caution everyone as they're entering leadership to treat it very deliberately. I think too many people are lured into leadership, not led. They think it's the next obvious step, right? More pay, bigger title, better office. And leading people is not a natural skill for everyone. It's not for me. It's a tough reminder every day that it's not about me. It's about them. And I struggle with that because I like myself and I'm popular in my own world. So my first advice would be to think very carefully about, is leadership right for you? Because leaders can do a lot of damage. When someone becomes a pilot, when they do damage. The plane, goes into the ground. People lose their lives. When a doctor does damage, the x-ray, you can see the scalpel still in the chest. When a leader does some damage, it's not always obvious. You see it in people leaving, people being diminished, people quitting. So my first caution would be very deliberate around, is leadership right for you? To answer the second part of your question, the book is one of those start anywhere, go everywhere books. There's 30 challenges. I've kind of written it in about a 30-day challenge. So you can read one a day. Not every one of them you'll conquer every day. But the book you can read in about 2.5 hours. Is a very easy, light read, intentionally. I didn't make it to be, Plato or Socrates. But you could read it in one setting and then come back and say, I'm going to practice challenge 1 today and challenge 2 tomorrow. So it's a very flexible book in terms of how you actually can adopt it.
Great. We'll get into some of those challenges in just a few minutes, but I'd love to hear what is your biggest insight from your own career as a leader? And maybe that's a difficult question to answer, but if you think about, gosh, of all of the learnings I've had and continue to have to this point, what is your biggest insight, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's balancing your own career with those around you. Because as a leader, your career doesn't end. You still have a mortgage to pay. You still have, a resume to keep current. You still have skills to learn. You want to earn more money. You want to get promoted. And I think there's that delicate balance of managing your own brand and your own reputation, your own career growth, while you're also helping those around you, while having the spotlight be on them, while realizing it isn't all about you, but not becoming a martyr or a victim because, they're not going to manage your brand for you. So it's this constant balance, juggling act of making sure that you're lifting others up, but you're also occasionally making sure that you're known to be still working here, right? So there's just that constant calibration of lifting your people, those who both work for you and those who work with you. Because, as a leader, I like to lift up your brand and others' brands that don't report to me. So that's kind of been my biggest challenge, is just making sure that I don't become a martyr or a victim. I also don't become the hog of the spotlight and make it all about me. I think that's my biggest learning over my career.
It's great insight. Well, let's get into some of the challenges. I wish we had time to go through all 30. We don't, but maybe you could select.
This is a special edition. It's a 3-hour podcast.
Oh, is that right?
Today. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Of course it is. So we talked a little bit about number one, demonstrate humility. What are some of the others as you go through the list? Like, again, they all, boy, the titles are catchy. They all look very important. But what are a few of the others you would highlight?
Yeah, so we organized them in 3 sections. Challenge 1 through 8 are all kind of congealing around leading yourself. And then challenges 9 through 21 focus on leading others. And then challenge 22 through 30 focus on getting results. I think there's some of the biggest lessons that I've learned through my association with Hiram Smith and Dr. Stephen R. Covey, the co-founders of our firm, Bob Whitman, our chairman, Joel Peterson on our board, you, Todd, as our chief people officer, are a couple. I think there's 2 that I actually do fairly well, and those are talking straight and leading difficult conversations. I have learned as a leader that I like to know where I stand with my leader. I hate that sort of paranoia of wondering, is she upset with me or how am I doing a job? So I kind of like to know where I am, where I stand. And I want my people to have the same. So I think incumbent on every leader is exercising the courage to step outside your comfort zone and to have the difficult, high courage conversation that you don't want to have, that if you do have in a respectful, considerate way, you can change someone's life. Of all of the feedback I've received at the end of someone's career where I was the leader, almost consistently, if and when I am paid a compliment, it generally centers around the same theme. Scott, you were the one person that had the courage to share with me my blind spots that others didn't, and it's had a big impact on me. So those are 2 that I think are really important to every leader that not everyone does naturally. We avoid them. We pretend they'll go away. We outsource them to HR. But you owe it to your people to talk straight and to lead difficult conversations. I think another one that I think has had a disproportionate impact on me is allowing others to be smart. A good friend of mine is Liz Wiseman. She's been a guest on this program. She wrote a book called Multipliers. She talked about how too often leaders try, consciously or unconsciously, to be the smartest person in the room. And as a result, we become geniuses as opposed to genius makers. And I think leaders are so enculturated to have all the answers, be right, be the smartest person in the room, when confident, humble leaders can step back and let somebody else be smart. And of course, the opposite of a multiplier is an accidental diminisher. And so for me, this idea of allowing others to be smart, allowing your husband to be smart, allowing your dad or your mom to be smart at Thanksgiving, I think it shows a lot of respect and patience, humility. And so as a leader like me, who was kind of always taught to have the answers, it's been a challenge for me to step back and let somebody else be smart.
Great insight. In the minute we have left, would that be, of the 30, as I'm looking through the list, which would be the one you struggle with the most?
Oh, challenge 3 for sure. Listen first. and I could come back and talk more about this after break, but listening is a leadership competency, especially where most leaders have had lots of hours of communication training, right? How to speak more effectively, how to increase your vocabulary, your body language, PowerPoint, how to manage a microphone and a stage, persuade, influence, convince. Few of us have had any training on listening. And so it's counterintuitive to a lot of us. So I think the one that is disproportionately impactful is the communication skill of listening. And if you'll let me, I'll come back and talk more about that.
That's one you struggle with the most.
I think it's one that everyone struggles with. First and foremost.
No, I'm telling you, I'm not asking you.
Thank
That's
you.
the one you struggle with. No,
yes, well, thank you for clarifying that.
No,
I don't feel safe.
anxious to talk more about that when we come back. You're listening to Great Life, Great Career with Todd Davis today. We'll be right back.